Stephen A. Smith is not your average sports commentator. If you've ever watched ESPN's First Take, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The man doesn't just talk. He shouts, gestures, pounds the table, and makes sure his voice echoes in your head long after the show ends. His passion for sports is unmatched, and he has this way of turning even the simplest debates into something that feels like a heavyweight boxing match. On this particular morning, Stephen walked onto the set with his usual energy. He adjusted his tie, glanced at the teleprompter, and then turned to face Max Kellerman, his co-host. The topic on the docket? Two names that had been dominating basketball conversations across the country: Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. These two players weren't just making waves, they were rewriting the script for college hoops, one game at a time. The buzz around them had been building for months. Fans couldn't stop talking about their skills, their stats, and their impact on the court. Some people said Angel Reese was the future of women's basketball. Others argued that Caitlin Clark was already there, setting records and breaking barriers almost every time she stepped onto the floor. It was only natural that someone like Stephen would eventually step in to give his take. And when he did, it wasn't subtle. "Listen here, folks," Stephen began, leaning forward as if he were about to reveal some deep secret. His voice boomed through the studio microphone, filling the air with authority. "I've heard enough about these comparisons between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark." He paused for dramatic effect, letting the tension build before delivering the punchline. "Let me tell you something right now. Angel Reese is talented, no doubt about that. But let me make this crystal clear. She is not Caitlin Clark." You could practically hear jaws dropping all over America. Social media exploded within seconds. Twitter timelines filled up with reactions, memes, and arguments. People who didn't even watch basketball regularly suddenly found themselves invested in this debate. Who was better? What made one player stand out more than the other? And why did Stephen feel so strongly about drawing such a hard line between them? To understand where Stephen was coming from, you have to picture how he operates. This isn't a guy who sits on the fence or sugarcoats things. When he says something, he means it. He backs up his opinions with facts, clips, and sheer conviction. So when he declared that Angel Reese wasn't in the same league as Caitlin Clark, he wasn't just throwing out a random hot take. He was planting a flag, daring anyone to challenge him. But this wasn't just about Stephen flexing his opinion muscles. It tapped into something bigger, a question that fans and analysts alike had been wrestling with for a while now. How do you compare two players who are undeniably great, but play completely different styles of basketball? Can you even compare them fairly without taking away from what each brings to the game? For those unfamiliar with Angel Reese, she's the kind of player who leaves everything on the court. Her game revolves around toughness, hustle, and an unrelenting desire to win. Whether it's grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, or diving for loose balls, she does whatever it takes to help her team succeed. Watching her play feels like watching a storm roll in. You can see the intensity in her eyes, the fire in her movements. There's no half-speed with Angel Reese, she's full throttle all the time. Caitlin Clark, on the other hand, is a different kind of beast altogether. Her game is smooth, calculated, and downright mesmerizing. She's got range on her jump, shot that seems almost unfair, hitting three-pointers from distances that make defenders shake their heads in disbelief. But it's not just her scoring ability that sets her apart, it's her vision. She sees the game differently, threading passes that most players wouldn't even attempt. She's not just playing basketball, she's orchestrating it, like a conductor leading a symphony. So when Stephen made his bold statement, he wasn't just talking about stats or highlight reels. He was addressing a deeper issue, one that goes beyond numbers and touches on the essence of what makes a player truly special. Was it dominance in specific areas like Angel Reese showed with her rebounding and defense? Or was it the ability to elevate everyone around you, like Caitlin Clark seemed to do with her leadership and playmaking? As the segment went on, Stephen elaborated on his point, pointing to specific plays and moments that highlighted the differences between the two stars. He talked about how Angel Reese thrived in the paint, using her size and athleticism to overpower opponents. But when it came to Caitlin Clark, he emphasized her versatility, her knack for finding ways to win regardless of the situation. "It's not just about being good at one thing," he said, jabbing his finger toward the camera for emphasis. "It's about being able to do it all." By the end of the segment, viewers were either nodding along with Stephen or furiously typing responses to refute him. Either way, he succeeded in doing what he always does, sparking a conversation that refused to die down. And as the days passed, it became clear that this wasn't just another fleeting sports debate. It was something bigger, something that resonated with fans on a personal level. Because at its core, this wasn't just about Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. It was about identity, values, and how we define greatness in sports. For some, greatness meant raw power and relentless effort. For others, it meant finesse, creativity, and the ability to inspire. Both perspectives were valid, which is why the debate kept growing louder and more heated. As fans debated online, shared clips of both players' best moments, and argued until their voices were hoarse, one thing became undeniable. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark had captured the imagination of an entire generation. Their rivalry, whether real or imagined, had become a symbol of the evolution of women's basketball. And Stephen A. Smith love, him or hate him, had thrown gasoline on the fire, ensuring that the conversation would rage on for weeks to come. And honestly, isn't that what sports are all about? To truly understand why Stephen A. Smith's comments sparked such a heated debate, you have to dive into the stories of these two players, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Their journeys to stardom weren't just about talent. They were shaped by their backgrounds, their work ethic, and the unique ways they approached the game. These women didn't just play basketball. They lived it, breathed it, and poured everything they had into becoming the athletes they are today. Let's start with Angel Reese. Growing up in Maryland, she was surrounded by family who believed in her potential from day one. Her mom often tells stories about how Angel would spend hours outside shooting hoops or practicing her footwork in the driveway. She wasn't the tallest kid on the block when she first started playing. But what she lacked in height, she made up for with sheer determination. By the time she hit high school, Angel had grown, not just physically but mentally. She became known as someone who could outwork anyone on the court. Her game is built around grit. If you watch her play, you'll notice how relentless she is. She fights for every rebound like it's the last one she'll ever get. She dives for loose balls without hesitation, even if it means crashing to the floor. And defensively, forget about it. She's like a brick wall, standing firm and refusing to back down no matter who she's guarding. People call her old school because her style reminds them of legends like Dennis Rodman or Charles Barkley, players who didn't rely on flashy moves but instead brought raw intensity every single night. But here's the thing about Angel. She doesn't care about labels or comparisons. All she wants to do is win. That mindset earned her a spot at LSU, where she quickly became the heart and soul of the team. Fans love her because she plays with passion and leaves everything on the court. When she steps onto the floor, you can see the fire in her eyes. It's not just about scoring points for her. It's about making sure her team comes out on top no matter what it takes. Now let's talk about Caitlin Clark. Hailing from Iowa, Caitlin's story is a little different. From a young age, she stood out not just for her skills but for her creativity. While other kids were learning the basics of dribbling and shooting, Caitlin was already thinking several steps ahead. She didn't just want to score. She wanted to control the game, to be the player everyone looked to when things got tough. Her rise to fame happened fast. As soon as she joined the Iowa Hawkeyes, it was clear that she was special. Caitlin has this uncanny ability to see the court like few others can. Where some players might panic under pressure, she stays calm and calculated, finding open teammates with pinpoint passes or pulling up for jaw-dropping three-pointers. And those half-court shots? Yeah, they're real. She's hit more than one, during games leaving fans and opponents alike stunned. What sets Caitlin apart isn't just her skill, it's her leadership. She carries herself with confidence, but it's not arrogance. It's the kind of quiet assurance that makes people trust her. On the court, she's the glue holding her team together. Off the court, she's humble, always deflecting praise and crediting her teammates for their success. Coaches rave about her work ethic, saying she's constantly pushing herself to improve, whether it's through extra practice sessions or studying film late into the night. Watching Caitlin play feels like watching art come to life. There's a rhythm to her game, a flow that's almost hypnotic. She's not just reacting to what's happening around her, she's dictating it. Every pass, every shot, every move seems deliberate, as though she's choreographed the entire game in her head before it even begins. So when you put Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark side by side, it's easy to see why people compare them. Both are incredibly talented, both dominate their respective teams, and both have legions of fans cheering them on. But look closer, and you'll realize how different they really are. Angel thrives in the paint, using her strength and athleticism to overpower opponents. Caitlin operates from beyond the arc, relying on her vision and precision to dismantle defenses. This contrast isn't just about playing styles, it's about personalities too. Angel is fiery and physical, someone who wears her emotions on her sleeve. You know exactly how she's feeling at any given moment because it's written all over her face. Caitlin, on the other hand, is cool and composed, exuding a quiet confidence that commands respect. They represent two sides of the same coin, one rooted in power, the other in finesse. And yet, despite their differences, both players share something important: a deep love for the game. Neither Angel nor Caitlin plays for fame or recognition. Sure, those things come with being a star athlete, but for them it's about something deeper. It's about proving to themselves and to the world that women's basketball deserves to be celebrated, respected, and taken seriously. That's why debates like the one Stephen A. sparked are so fascinating. They force us to think critically about what we value in sports. Is it the brute force and hustle of someone like Angel Reese? Or is it the elegance and creativity of someone like Caitlin Clark? Maybe it's both. Maybe greatness isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. Maybe it's okay to appreciate each player for what they bring to the table without pitting them against each other. As the conversation grew louder, fans began sharing their own perspectives. Some argued that Angel's toughness and rebounding ability made her indispensable. Others pointed to Caitlin's versatility and leadership as proof that she was in a league of her own. Social media lit up with clips of both players' best moments, turning timelines into highlight reels. People debated endlessly, dissecting stats, analyzing plays, and trying to settle an argument that might never truly be resolved. But perhaps the most interesting part of all this wasn't the arguments themselves, it was the passion behind them. Whether you sided with Angel or Caitlin, the fact that people cared so deeply spoke volumes about the state of women's basketball. These weren't just discussions about individual players. They were celebrations of the sport as a whole. Fans weren't just talking about Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. They were talking about the future of basketball, about breaking barriers, and about inspiring the next generation of athletes. For Angel and Caitlin, none of this seemed to faze them. Both players stayed focused on their goals, letting their performances speak for themselves. They knew better than anyone that comparisons were inevitable, especially when you reached the level they had. But instead of getting caught up in the noise, they channeled their energy into improving their games and helping their teams succeed. After all, at the end of the day, that's what mattered most to them. As the season progressed, anticipation built for the inevitable showdown between LSU and Iowa. Fans couldn't wait to see these two stars face off in person, to witness firsthand whether Angel's dominance inside could match Caitlin's brilliance from beyond the arc. Would it be a battle of wills, a clash of styles, or something entirely unexpected? One thing was certain: whoever won or lost, the game wouldn't change the fact that both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark had already left an indelible mark on the sport. Their stories weren't just about basketball. They were about perseverance, hard work, and the pursuit of excellence. And as long as they kept playing the way they did, the debates would continue, fueling the excitement and keeping fans hooked. Because that's the beauty of sports. It's never just about the final score. It's about the journey, the rivalries, and the unforgettable moments that remind us why we fell in love with the game in the first place. The moment fans had been waiting for finally arrived. LSU versus Iowa. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. Two powerhouse teams, two unstoppable players, and one stage that felt bigger than just a regular season game. It wasn't just about winning or losing anymore. It was about proving who could shine brighter under the spotlight. The arena buzzed with energy, packed to the brim with screaming fans holding up signs, wearing jerseys and chanting their favorite player's name. Even those watching from home could feel the electricity in the air. From the opening tip-off, it was clear this wasn't going to be an ordinary matchup. Both teams came out swinging, determined to set the tone early. But all eyes were on Angel and Caitlin. Every time either of them touched the ball, the crowd erupted. It was as if everyone collectively held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Angel Reese wasted no time showing why she was known as a force to be reckoned with. She grabbed rebounds like they owed her money, snatching the ball out of thin air and starting fast breaks before anyone else could react. On defense, she was a wall, blocking shots, contesting drives, and making life miserable for anyone who dared step into the paint. Her energy was contagious. You could see it in the way her teammates fed off her intensity, diving for loose balls and hustling on every possession. Caitlin Clark, on the other hand, played with a calmness that almost seemed unnatural given the chaos around her. While Angel thrived in the physical battles inside, Caitlin operated on the perimeter, picking apart LSU's defense with surgical precision. She hit three-pointers so deep they looked impossible, threading passes through tight windows that left defenders spinning in circles. And when LSU tried to double-team her, forget about it. She found open teammates with ease, turning potential turnovers into highlight reel assists. As the game unfolded, it became less about strategy and more about sheer willpower. Both players refused to back down, trading blows like heavyweight boxers in a championship fight. When Angel muscled her way to another offensive rebound and put back, Caitlin answered with a silky smooth pull-up jumper. When Caitlin drilled a dagger three-pointer from way downtown, Angel responded by slamming the door shut on Iowa's next trip down the court with a monstrous block. It wasn't just their individual performances that captivated everyone. It was how they carried themselves. Angel played with raw emotion, letting her passion fuel her every move. Every rebound was celebrated like it was the biggest play of the game. Every steal ignited a fire in her teammates. Meanwhile, Caitlin stayed composed, leading by example. With her poise and decision-making, she didn't need to yell or flex to command attention. Her play spoke volumes. By halftime, social media was already ablaze. Fans couldn't decide who was having the better game. Some pointed to Angel's dominance on the boards and her defensive presence, arguing that her hustle plays were keeping LSU in the game. Others highlighted Caitlin's scoring explosion and her ability to control the flow of the offense, saying she was putting on a clinic. Analysts weighed in, breaking down every stat and highlight. Coaches praised both players for their competitiveness and skill. Even casual viewers found themselves glued to the screen, unable to look away. The second half only cranked the intensity up another notch. With the score seesawing back and forth, neither team wanted to give an inch. Every possession mattered, every shot counted. And at the center of it all were Angel and Caitlin, locked in their own personal duel while carrying their teams on their shoulders. One pivotal moment came late in the fourth quarter. Iowa had taken a small lead thanks to a flurry of points from Caitlin, who had seemingly willed her team ahead with a string of clutch baskets. But Angel wasn't about to let LSU go down without a fight. On the next possession, she powered her way through traffic, snagged an offensive rebound over two defenders and laid the ball in to tie the game. The crowd went wild, roaring in appreciation of her relentless effort. It was the kind of play that reminded everyone why she was so special, a perfect blend of strength, determination, and heart. But Caitlin wasn't done yet. With time running out, she took matters into her own hands. Dribbling past midcourt, she sized up her defender, took two quick steps and launched a contested three-pointer from well beyond the arc. Swish, nothing but net. The shot sent shockwaves through the arena, silencing the LSU faithful and giving Iowa a narrow lead with just seconds left on the clock. LSU had one last chance to answer, and naturally, the ball ended up in Angel's hands. She drove hard to the basket, drawing contact and earning a trip to the free throw line. The tension was palpable as she stepped to the line, knowing the game rested on her shoulders. She sank the first shot, cutting the deficit to 1. Then came the second attempt, the most important free throw of her career. She exhaled, bent her knees and released the ball. It clanged off the rim. When the final buzzer sounded, Iowa emerged victorious, thanks in large part to Caitlin's heroics. But even in defeat, Angel's performance earned universal respect. She finished with a monstrous stat line, double-digit rebounds, key blocks, and countless hustle plays that kept LSU alive until the very end. Caitlin, meanwhile, posted numbers that seemed almost video game-like. Points in the high 20s, multiple assists, and those signature deep threes that left jaws dropped. As the players shook hands and headed to their respective locker rooms, the real drama began. Social media exploded with reactions. Fans debated endlessly, posting clips of Angel's ferocious rebounds alongside Caitlin's ice-cold shooting. Analysts broke down every aspect of the game, trying to determine who truly deserved the better label. Memes flooded timelines, poking fun at everything from Angel's tenacity to Caitlin's range. It was the kind of post-game buzz that doesn't come around often, a testament to how compelling the matchup had been. For Stephen A. Smith, this game provided all the ammunition he needed to reignite his earlier argument. He hopped on first. Take the very next morning, ready to break down the footage and explain why his initial take still held water. "Did you see that?" he bellowed, pointing at a replay of Angel battling for a rebound. "That's what I'm talking about. Pure grit, pure toughness. Nobody works harder than Angel Reese." Then, switching gears, he queued up a clip of Caitlin draining one of her trademark long-range bombs. "And this? This is artistry. This is greatness. Caitlin Clark doesn't just win games. She changes them. She elevates everyone around her." Stevens' analysis struck a chord with many viewers, but it also reignited the debate. Some agreed with him, nodding along as he outlined the differences between the two players. Others pushed back, arguing that Angel's contributions were just as valuable, if not more so, than Caitlin's flashy highlights. The conversation spilled over onto talk shows, podcasts, and even dinner tables across the country. What made this clash so fascinating wasn't just the basketball itself, it was what it represented. For years, women's basketball had been fighting for recognition, struggling to break through the noise and earn the respect it deserved. Players like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark weren't just competing against each other, they were redefining what it meant to be a star in the sport. They were proving that women's basketball could be just as exciting, dramatic, and captivating as any men's game. And perhaps that was the biggest takeaway from the whole ordeal. Whether you sided with Angel or Caitlin, whether you valued toughness or finesse, one thing was undeniable. The future of basketball was in good hands. These two players weren't just rivals. They were trailblazers, paving the way for the next generation of athletes to dream bigger and aim higher. As the dust settled and the chatter slowed down, one question lingered in the minds of fans everywhere. What happens next? Would there be a rematch? Could Angel adjust her game to counter Caitlin's brilliance? Or would Caitlin continue to dominate, cementing her status as the face of college hoops? No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain: the world would be watching. The morning after the LSU-Iowa game, Stephen A. Smith returned to First Take with the same fiery energy that had made him a household name. This time, though, he wasn't just talking about basketball. He was dissecting it, breaking down every play, every stat, and every moment from the previous night's showdown. His mission? To prove once and for all why Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark couldn't be compared as equals. And if there's one thing Stephen knows how to do, it's make his point loud and clear. "Let me tell you something," he began, leaning forward in his chair like a lawyer presenting closing arguments. "I said it before, and I'll say it again. Angel Reese is not Caitlin Clark. Let me explain why." He started by rolling out clips of Angel Reese during the game. There she was, muscling her way through defenders for rebounds, diving on the floor for loose balls, and blocking shots at the rim. The footage showcased everything fans loved about her: her relentless hustle, her physicality, and her ability to dominate inside. Stephen paused the tape, pointing to the screen with his trademark intensity. "This right here? This is what makes Angel Reese special," he said. "She's tough, she's gritty, and she does the dirty work that wins games. You can't teach this kind of effort. She leaves everything on the court, and that's why people respect her. But then, without missing a beat, Stephen shifted gears. He queued up a highlight reel of Caitlin Clark, showing her draining deep three-pointers, threading impossible passes and orchestrating Iowa's offense like a maestro conducting an orchestra. As the clips played, you could hear the audience murmuring in awe. Even Max Kellerman sitting across from him nodded in admiration. "And this," Stephen boomed, jabbing his finger toward the screen again, "is why Caitlin Clark is on another level. Look at this range, look at this vision. She doesn't just score points, she controls the game. She elevates everyone around her. That's what separates her from Angel Reese." Stephen's argument hinged on one key idea: versatility. While Angel excelled in specific areas, rebounding, defense, and interior play, Caitlin did it all. She could score from anywhere on the court, create opportunities for her teammates, and adapt to whatever the opposing team threw at her. In Stephen's eyes, that made her not just a great player, but a transformative one. "She's not just a shooter or a passer," he explained. "She's a complete package." When you talk about generational talents, you're talking about players who can change the outcome of a game no matter the situation. Caitlin Clark fits that description. Angel Reese? Not so much. To drive his point home, Stephen turned to the stats. He pulled up a side-by-side comparison of both players' performances throughout the season. Angel's numbers were impressive. Double-digit. Rebounds per game, high field goal percentages near the basket, and countless hustle plays that didn't show up in traditional metrics. But when you looked at Caitlin's stats, they told a different story. She averaged more points, racked up assists like a point guard, and consistently hit clutch shots in critical moments. "Look at these numbers," Stephen said, gesturing wildly at the screen. "Angel Reese is dominant in certain categories, no question, but Caitlin Clark impacts every category: scoring, passing, leadership, it's all there. That's why you can't put them in the same conversation." Of course, Stephen knew his comments would spark pushback. Fans of Angel Reese weren't going to sit quietly while someone dismissed her contributions. So he preemptively addressed the counter-arguments, acknowledging Angel's value while doubling down on his stance. "Listen, I'm not saying Angel Reese isn't valuable," he clarified, softening his tone slightly. "She's incredibly important to her team. Without her rebounding and defense, LSU wouldn't be where they are today. But let's be real. There's a difference between being valuable and being irreplaceable. Caitlin Clark is irreplaceable. She's the engine that drives Iowa's success. Take her off the court, and the whole system falls apart." Max Kellerman chimed in, playing devil's advocate as usual. "But isn't that underselling Angel's role? Her toughness and grit inspire her teammates too. Isn't that a form of leadership?" Stephen shook his head firmly. "Inspiring your teammates is one thing. Elevating their games is another. Caitlin doesn't just inspire, she makes her teammates better. She gets them easy buckets. She draws defenses away from them. She creates space for them to operate. That's a skill set Angel doesn't have." As the segment went on, Stephen kept hammering his point, using examples from the LSU-Iowa game to back up his claims. He highlighted moments where Caitlin took over late in the fourth quarter, hitting big shots and setting up her teammates for success. Then he contrasted those plays with sequences where Angel relied on her athleticism and hustle to keep LSU competitive, but ultimately fell short. "Don't get me wrong," Stephen added, raising his hands defensively. "Angel Reese is a beast. She fights harder than almost anyone in college basketball. But fighting hard doesn't always translate to winning championships. Caitlin Clark finds ways to win even when things aren't going her team's way. That's the difference." By the end of the segment, Stephen had laid out a compelling case, but he knew the debate wasn't over. Social media lit up once again, with fans passionately defending their favorite player. Supporters of Angel praised her blue-collar mentality and argued that intangibles like heart and hustle couldn't be measured by stats alone. Meanwhile, Caitlin's supporters echoed Stephen's sentiments, pointing to her all-around impact and undeniable star power. Even former WNBA legends joined the fray, adding their voices to the mix. One analyst praised Angel's rebounding dominance, calling it a lost art in modern basketball. Another lauded Caitlin's creativity, saying she reminded them of some of the greatest guards to ever play the game. The discussion became less about who was better and more about what qualities fans valued most in a player. For many, Angel represented the grit and determination that defined basketball's roots. She embodied the spirit of hard work, proving that success often comes from sheer willpower and effort. Caitlin, on the other hand, symbolized the evolution of the sport, a new era where skill, strategy, and innovation took center stage. Both perspectives were valid, which is why the debate resonated so deeply with fans. Amidst the chaos, one thing stood out. The passion surrounding women's basketball had never been higher. Whether you rooted for Angel or Caitlin, whether you cared about stats or style, the conversation proved that the sport was thriving. These two players weren't just competing against each other, they were redefining what it meant to be a superstar in the modern game. As the days passed, the buzz only grew louder. Highlight reels of both players flooded social media, accompanied by endless debates and hot takes. Some viewers sided with Steven, agreeing that Caitlin's versatility set her apart. Others pushed back, insisting that Angel's toughness and leadership deserved equal recognition. Even casual fans found themselves sucked into the drama, eager to see how the rivalry would unfold in future matchups. Through it all, Stephen A. Smith remained unapologetic about his stance. At the end of the day, he concluded during a follow-up appearance, "This isn't about disrespecting Angel Reese, it's about understanding the nuances of greatness. Caitlin Clark brings something to the table that nobody else does, and that's why she stands alone." While not everyone agreed with him, one thing was undeniable. Stephen had succeeded in sparking a national conversation. Fans weren't just debating statistics or strategies. They were celebrating the brilliance of two extraordinary athletes who were changing the face of women's basketball. And as long as players like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark continued to shine, the debates would keep coming, fueling the excitement and ensuring that the sport remained at the forefront of sports culture. Because that's the magic of competition. It forces us to think critically, argue passionately, and appreciate the beauty of the game in all its forms. And in this case, it gave us two unforgettable stars whose stories will be told for years to come. Stephen A. Smith's fiery declaration that Angel Reese wasn't in the same league as Caitlin Clark didn't just stay confined to his ESPN show. It spilled over into living rooms, social media feeds, and even locker rooms across the country. Fans were divided, some nodding along with Stephen's analysis, others ready to throw their remotes at the screen in frustration. But what made this debate truly explode was how deeply it resonated within the basketball community itself. Coaches, former players, analysts, and even the athletes themselves weighed in, turning a simple sports argument into a full-blown cultural moment. Let's start with the backlash. As soon as Stephen's comments aired, fans of Angel Reese rallied to her defense. They took to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, posting videos of her most dominant plays, her ferocious rebounds, her defensive stops, and her relentless hustle. One viral clip showed her diving for a loose ball, crashing to the floor and immediately popping back up like nothing had happened. "This is heart," one fan wrote underneath the video. "Tell me this isn't greatness." Others focused on Stephen's perceived bias. "Why does he always have to pit women against each other?" one commenter asked. "Can't we celebrate both of them instead of tearing one down?" This sentiment struck a chord with many viewers who felt tired of comparisons between female athletes. For years, women in sports had fought against stereotypes, unequal pay, and lack of media coverage. Now, when two incredible players were finally getting the recognition they deserved, some believed Stephen was undermining their achievements by insisting one was better than the other. Former WNBA stars also chimed in, defending Angel's contributions and challenging Stephen's narrative. One legendary player posted a heartfelt message on social media saying, "Angel Reese changes games in ways that don't always show up in the box score. Her energy, her toughness, her presence, they matter. You can't measure heart or hustle, but anyone who watches her play knows how valuable she is." Another added, "Basketball isn't just about stats or highlights. It's about impact, and Angel has plenty of that." Caitlin Clark's supporters, however, weren't backing down either. Many echoed Stevens' points, praising her versatility and leadership while arguing that her ability to elevate her entire team set her apart. Clips of her dishing out assists and hitting clutch shots flooded timelines, accompanied by captions like, "This is why she's different and she makes everyone around her better." Some fans even joked that Caitlin should thank Steven for giving her free publicity, as his comments only seemed to grow her fan base. Amidst the chaos, Angel Reese herself responded, not with anger, but with grace. She posted a photo on Instagram of herself mid-rebound, sweat dripping down her face, with a caption that read, "I don't need validation from anyone. My work speaks for itself." The post quickly racked up millions of likes, with fans flooding the comment section to show their support. One wrote, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Angel. Keep doing you." Another added, "Ignore the noise. We see your greatness." Her response resonated deeply, especially among young fans who admired her confidence and resilience. Here was a player unafraid to let her game do the talking, refusing to get caught up in the drama swirling around her. It was a reminder that at the end of the day, these athletes were human beings navigating immense pressure and scrutiny. Angel's decision to rise above the criticism spoke volumes about her character. On the flip side, Caitlin Clark remained focused on her team's goals, deflecting praise and staying humble despite the growing hype. During a post-game interview, she was asked about Steven's comments and whether she agreed with him. "I don't really pay attention to that stuff," she said with a shrug. "I'm just trying to help my team win. That's all that matters to me." Her coach echoed similar sentiments, calling Caitlin one of the most complete players I've ever coached, while emphasizing her selflessness and dedication to improving every day. Despite their differences, both players handled the situation with maturity, choosing to focus on their craft rather than engage in public spats. Their responses earned widespread respect, proving that they weren't just talented athletes, they were role models too. But the debate didn't stop there. Analysts continued to break down film, dissect stats, and argue over who brought more value to the court. Some pointed to Angel's dominance inside, noting how her rebounding gave LSU second-chance opportunities and disrupted opponents' offensive flow. Others highlighted Caitlin's scoring ability and playmaking, arguing that her range and vision forced defenses to adjust in ways Angel simply couldn't replicate. One particularly heated discussion unfolded on a popular sports podcast where two hosts debated whether toughness or skill mattered more in determining a player's worth. "Look, I love watching Angel play," one host admitted. "She's a warrior, but basketball is evolving. Being able to stretch the floor, create shots, and involve your teammates, that's what wins championships now." His co-host countered, "And what happens when you don't have someone doing the dirty work? Rebounding, defending, setting screens, those things are still essential. Angel brings that grit, and you can't win without it." The conversation extended beyond podcasts and TV shows, reaching classrooms, workplaces, and family dinners. Friends argued passionately over dinner tables, siblings texted furiously during commercial breaks, and strangers exchanged heated messages in comment sections. Even those who didn't follow basketball closely found themselves drawn into the drama, curious to understand why this debate mattered so much. What made this moment unique was how personal it felt. For many fans, picking a side wasn't just about analyzing stats or watching highlights. It was about identifying with certain qualities and values. Angel's supporters admired her tenacity, seeing her as a symbol of hard work and perseverance. Caitlin's fans celebrated her creativity, viewing her as proof that innovation and adaptability could redefine the game. Both perspectives reflected broader themes about identity, ambition, and what it means to succeed in life. As the weeks went on, the debate began to shift slightly. Instead of focusing solely on individual greatness, people started discussing the bigger picture. How did these two players represent the evolution of women's basketball? What lessons could aspiring athletes learn from their contrasting styles? And perhaps most importantly, how could this conversation inspire future generations to dream bigger and aim higher? Coaches and mentors weighed in, sharing stories of young players inspired by Angel and Caitlin. One high school coach recounted how his team had started practicing harder after watching Angel's intensity on the boards. They saw her fight for every rebound and realized they could bring that same effort to their own games, he explained. Meanwhile, a youth basketball instructor described how Caitlin's shooting clinics had motivated kids to expand their skill sets, encouraging them to practice dribbling, passing, and shooting beyond the arc. Even casual fans found themselves paying closer attention to women's basketball, tuning into games they might have otherwise ignored. Television ratings soared, merchandise sales skyrocketed, and arenas filled up with record-breaking crowds. Players noticed the surge in interest, expressing gratitude for the increased support while vowing to keep delivering performances worthy of such enthusiasm. Through it all, Stephen A. Smith kept the conversation alive, returning to First Take multiple times to address new developments and counter-arguments. He acknowledged the backlash, admitting that he understood why some people felt strongly about Angel's contributions. "Listen, I'm not saying she's not great," he clarified during one segment. "She's amazing. But when you talk about generational talents, you're talking about Caitlin Clark. That's all I'm saying." His willingness to engage with critics helped maintain the momentum, ensuring that the debate remained front and center in sports discussions. Whether you agreed with him or not, Stephen's passion kept people talking and listening. By the time the dust settled, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark anymore. It was about celebrating the growth of women's basketball, honoring the sacrifices and efforts of its athletes, and recognizing the power of sport to unite and inspire. These two players had sparked a movement, reminding everyone why they fell in love with the game in the first place. And as the season progressed, fans eagerly awaited the next chapter in this unfolding story. Would there be a rematch between LSU and Iowa? Could Angel adjust her game to counter Caitlin's brilliance? Or would Caitlin continue to dominate, cementing her status as the face of college hoops? No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain. The world would be watching. As the season rolled on, the dust from the heated debate between fans of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark began to settle. But instead of fading into the background, both players continued to shine brighter with each game they played. Their performances weren't just about proving a point, they were about leaving a mark on the sport that would last long after the final buzzer sounded. Angel Reese kept doing what she did best, dominating the paint, grabbing rebounds like her. Life depended on it, and playing with an intensity that inspired everyone around her. Every time she stepped onto the court, she reminded fans why they loved her in the first place. Her hustle plays became the stuff of legend, diving for loose balls, fighting through double teams, and refusing to give up even when the odds were stacked against her. Coaches praised her leadership, saying she had transformed LSU into a team that thrived under pressure. "She's not just a player," one analyst noted during a broadcast. "She's a force of nature." Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, continued to rewrite the record books. With every deep three-pointer and no-look pass, she cemented her status as one of the most electrifying talents in college basketball history. But it wasn't just her individual brilliance that stood out. It was how she lifted her teammates. She made them better, smarter, and more confident. Whether it was setting up an open shooter or drawing defenders away from the basket, Caitlin had this uncanny ability to create opportunities where none seemed possible. Fans often joked that watching her play felt like witnessing a magician. At work, you never knew what she'd pull off next. Both players led their teams deep into the postseason, delivering unforgettable performances along the way. For Angel, it was about grit and determination. She carried LSU through tough matchups, willing her team forward with sheer effort. One memorable moment came during a close game when she snagged a crucial rebound in the final seconds, securing a win that sent LSU to the next round. The crowd erupted, chanting her name as she walked off the court, drenched in sweat but smiling, ear to ear. For Caitlin, it was all about poise under pressure. In one nail-biting overtime thriller, she scored 12 of her team's final 15 points, including a jaw-dropping step-back jumper that silenced the opposing crowd. When the buzzer sounded, Iowa celebrated another hard-fought victory, knowing full well they wouldn't have made it without their star guard. Her coach summed it up perfectly in a post-game interview. There are players who can take over games, and then there's Caitlin Clark. She's in a league of her own. Despite their successes, neither player let the noise distract them. They stayed grounded, focusing on their teams and their goals rather than getting caught up in comparisons or debates. Angel kept working tirelessly in practice, always looking for ways to improve her footwork or refine her post moves. Caitlin spent extra hours studying film, analyzing opponents' tendencies, and finding new ways to exploit weaknesses. Their dedication was infectious, motivating their teammates to push harder and aim higher. The rivalry between LSU and Iowa remained a hot topic throughout the tournament, with fans eagerly speculating about whether the two teams might meet again in the championship. Social media buzzed with predictions, memes, and countdowns to potential rematches. Analysts debated endlessly, breaking down scenarios and strategies while reminiscing about their earlier clash. It was clear that Angel and Caitlin had become symbols of something bigger, a testament to the growth and excitement surrounding women's basketball. But beyond the stats and highlights, what truly mattered was the impact these players had on the sport itself. They weren't just competing against each other, they were elevating the entire game. Young athletes watched in awe, dreaming of emulating their heroes. Parents signed their kids up for basketball camps, hoping to instill the same passion and discipline. Even casual fans found themselves drawn in, tuning into games and cheering louder than ever before. Coaches across the country noticed the shift. High school gyms were packed with spectators eager to catch the next rising star. Youth leagues reported record participation numbers, with girls signing up in droves. Mentors spoke passionately about how Angel and Caitlin had inspired a new generation to believe in themselves and chase their dreams. These players are changing lives, one coach said during an interview. They're showing young athletes that anything is possible if you work hard enough. And it wasn't just about basketball. Both Angel and Caitlin represented qualities that transcended sports: resilience, creativity, teamwork, and leadership. People saw parts of themselves in these athletes, connecting with their stories and finding motivation in their journeys. Whether it was Angel's relentless hustle or Caitlin's calm confidence, fans found something to admire and aspire to. Stephen A. Smith revisited the topic one last time toward the end of the season, reflecting on the broader significance of the debate he had sparked. Sitting across from his co-host, he leaned back in his chair, his tone softer than usual. "You know, I've been thinking about this a lot," he began. "When I said Angel Reese isn't Caitlin Clark, I wasn't trying to diminish either of them. I was pointing out how different they are and how amazing it is that we have two players like this in the same era." He went on to explain how the conversation had evolved over time, shifting from arguments about stats to discussions about values and legacy. "At the end of the day, it's not about who's better," he admitted. "It's about appreciating what each player brings to the table. Angel Reese is a warrior, plain and simple. Caitlin Clark is a genius, a game changer. Both are incredible in their own right." His words resonated with many viewers, offering a sense of closure to a debate that had dominated headlines for months. While opinions still varied, there was a growing consensus that comparing Angel and Caitlin wasn't necessarily fair, or even necessary. Each player had carved out her own unique path, inspiring millions along the way. By the time the championship game arrived, the focus had shifted from individual rivalries to celebrating the collective achievements of women's basketball. Fans filled arenas waving signs and chanting slogans that honored the sport's trailblazers. Broadcasters highlighted milestones and records set during the season, emphasizing how far the game had come in recent years. Players embraced the moment, knowing they were part of something historic. In the end, the winner of the tournament didn't matter as much as the journey itself. Both Angel and Caitlin had proven that greatness comes in many forms, that toughness and finesse, grit and grace could coexist and thrive together. Their legacies weren't defined by trophies or accolades, but by the impact they had on the people who watched them play. As the final buzzer sounded and confetti rained down, cameras panned to Angel and Caitlin standing side by side, congratulating each other with genuine smiles. There was no animosity, no lingering resentment, just mutual respect and admiration. It was a powerful reminder that sports, at its core, is about connection, about bringing people together even when they disagree, about celebrating human achievement in all its forms. Months later, as the off-season began and attention turned to the next chapter of women's basketball, fans reflected on everything they had witnessed. The debates, the highlights, the unforgettable moments. It all added up to something greater than any single player or game. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark had become icons, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. Flawed, fierce, and fiercely determined, they embodied the spirit of competition and the beauty of striving for excellence. So, as the world looked ahead to future seasons and new stars waiting to emerge, one thing was certain: the legacy of Angel and Caitlin would endure. Their names would be remembered not just for their skills on the court but for the passion they ignited in others. And in that way they had already won, because true greatness isn't measured by victories alone. It's measured by the hearts you touch and the lives you change along the way.